Hello and welcome back to El Pozo, the Primera RFEF show. I am your host, Nick Bell, and I'm delighted to say I'm being joined once again by Liam Bambridge as we look back over the first legs of the playoffs, Liam. It's hard to believe we're here. When we started this podcast a few months ago, the playoffs were a fever dream, a distance away from us, yet here we are talking about promotion to the Spanish Segunda. First of all, are you well?
Yeah, not so bad. We spent an hour and 40 minutes on the M62, so that wasn't a lot of fun. But yeah, apart from that, I'm fine.
Yeah, it's not it's a one thing probably about my new job that I like is I don't have to sit on the M62, listening to all the various different things and sitting in traffic and stuff like that. It's never nice. So my empathy is with you now. However, you get to come home and you get to talk about Primera RFEF football with me. So there is reward to your labour today, I suppose. I suppose we best start off with by saying, even though I was on the beers this weekend, Saturday with my friends, there was a Champions League final that I was going to watch. I could not take my eyes off the Segunda Federacion. It was all happening this weekend, wasn't it, Liam?
Absolutely was. I was impressed by your dedication. There was one point, wasn't there, where one of the games ended or something, and you tweeted me. I know you texted me about it. I was like, that is impressive. It's quite late into the evening here. He's probably had a skinful by now. I wasn't expecting him to be thinking particularly about, I can't remember who it was, to be honest. I think it might have been Cacereño or Láviles Industrial as well. That was like, did you see what just happened? And I was like, yeah, that's quite impressive, Nick. So yeah, hooked as much as I am, aren't you?
Yes, I really am, and really excited to see these five teams who have now been confirmed. So just to let you know, it is Cacereño, Real Avilés, Industrial, Talavera, Tarayol, who was, I think, the team was that I messaged you about, because I think they scored in the 92nd minute or something like that against Numancia. And also Sabadell as well are our five playoff winners. Some have got, obviously, experience at this level before, quite recently, some not so recently. So it's a bit of an interesting collection of teams we've got, because I think with the exception of Cacereño, none of them actually finished second in the league, did they?
That's a really good stat, which I don't know off the top of my head. I'm fairly sure that Teruel, in fact, I know Teruel finished fifth. I think you're right, Nick. I think it could be just Cacereño. That's actually, I hadn't even looked at that. Certainly, I don't think Talavera finished second. I'm not sure about Real Avilés Industrial, but I don't think they did either. No. So no, very good. No, you're right. The two of those sides, I think, are bouncing straight back. That's Teruel and Sabadell. They both went down 12 months ago and said come straight back up. Talavera have only had a couple of seasons out of Primera RFEF, so they have played in it before. But I think Real Avilés, Industrial, and Cacereño have been out of it for quite a long time longer, haven't they? So that's brilliant for them to be back up at this level.
Yeah, it really is, and like you say, some well fought victories in those finals as well for them. Obviously, it's a bit of a slog to climb El Pozo. It is mad how many leagues we have under Primera RFEF. So it's nice to see those sides join the five champions we've got as well. So just to remind you, we've got Pontevedra, we've got Arenas de Guecho, we've got Europa. We've got Juventud de Torremolinos, and we've got Guadalajara as well. So plenty of new faces for us to get all excited about, Liam, and to fall in love with all over again. Now that we've lost some of our other teams that we fell in love with this season.
Very much so. Interesting as well that the spread of the winners in the playoffs this year. Now, I didn't realize until I looked at this a few days ago. Did you know that 3 teams were promoted via the playoffs from Grupo 4 last year? Marbella, Yeclano Deportivo, and I think Betis Deportivo or the other one. So the champions went up, and so did 3 teams in the playoffs. This year, no teams from Grupo 4 went up. It was much more even spread this year. I think it was 2 from Grupo 5 and then 1 from Grupos 1, 2, and 3. And so amazing how that swings, isn't it? There's often a lot of talk about which division is stronger, and it's quite nice when it's spread across 4 of the 5 divisions, because it feels like a bit more even spread. And as you say, teams that we didn't know much about until the playoffs started, and we're now getting much more familiar with them, aren't we?
Yes, we really are, and started to look at some of the permutations of their moves, some of the announcements he's made about their managers, some potentially changing managers, which we'll touch on later. There's pitch issues. We had some news today that Cacereño are getting a casting injection from the Junta next to Madura to improve their pitch and improve their facilities at the Estadio Príncipe Felipe. So yeah, it's exciting to see these teams come up. And obviously, we also have some teams confirmed to come down. It was obviously the end of the Spanish Segunda season at the weekend. We knew who was coming down already, so it was a bit of a dead rubber for that factor. But, 4 big clubs coming down as well, Liam, don't we? We're building a strong Primera RFEF for next season.
Yeah, very much so. As you rightly said, they'd all already been relegated. I think Eldense were the last team to confirm the kind of place they wouldn't want to confirm their place in the league below the league in which they competed this year. We'd already had it confirmed that Tenerife and Cartagena and Racing Club de Ferrol will be joining us. And you're right, yeah, some movement in terms of Cacereño support from local government, which is great to see. And I also saw today, I think that there's going to be a meeting, isn't there, between Europa and the Spanish Federation about this ongoing issue with their pitch. They've kind of made it clear we're not going to play anywhere other than our home pitch in Gracia in Barcelona. And the home pitch is an artificial surface, which, as we know, is not allowed in Primera RFEF. So we're a bit of a standoff here, aren't we, really? Because we've already detailed the fact they can't change that pitch to a grass pitch, and they're now saying they can't go anywhere else. Or they won't go anywhere else. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that meeting next week. Could be an interesting conclusion to that. I suspect that the Primera Federacion, which of course is governed by the RFEF, will probably say, tough, the teams have had to do it. You need to find a way around it. But we'll see what happens with that in due course.
I think they're going to try and put it to a vote or something like that. In like, I think there's an extraordinary meeting or maybe just an AGM coming up. I don't know how it really works behind the scenes, but I think they're saying, well, if we get all the other clubs to agree to it, would that work? But like you've mentioned before, there are some teams in this league that have had to, bite the bullet and had to endure the pain of converting their artificial pitches into grass pitches. And, it remains to be seen whether they can get that level of support. I think the other caveat is they'll say, well, we need more than 12 months to, find a solution basically, and whether we can maybe get that, which I think would probably be the best of both worlds. Maybe we'll watch that one with interest. I suppose one thing we were definitely watching with interest on Saturday, Lynn, was a playoff semi-final first leg between Gimnàstica Tarragona and Real Murcia. We've spoken about this game as a team who are very good at home and a team that are very good away, sort of coming together, a bit like an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. Kind of turned out to be the case at the Nuevo Estadio Costa de Rueda this weekend, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. We talked about Gimnàstic being strong at home. And so for me, I was a little bit surprised that they left Pablo Fernandez on the bench. He scored 12 goals for them this season. I just felt like, and I get it, I know that he wants to play with just one up front, San Pedro, and so therefore he'd have had to move, I suppose, Anton Yin out to one of the flanks. I don't think he wants to play a 4-4-2 really, and I think Anton Yin is more effective through the middle. But you've got two strikers with more than 10 goals. You need to win this first game for me. You're strong at home, you're not good away from home. And the other interesting one that he did was, the interesting selection he made was he picked a guy called Enric Puyol at centre-half. And Enric Puyol is a 19-year-old. I think he came on as a sub maybe in the last league game, but what a massive game to put him into. I mean, really, talk about baptism of fire, a playoff semi-final at the age of 19. We'll talk more about him later. But how did you read the first half overall, Nick? What did you make of it the first 45 minutes?
I think it stayed true to what we were expecting. It was bound to be cagey. I think, like say, both of these teams are experienced big clubs who are bound to feel each other out. But I think Real Murcia had the better chances in the first half, and obviously took them as well. And we've waxed lyrical about David Flacos on this podcast before. His awareness there for that back heel to put it into the path of Pedro Benito is, he's not going to be a player that's playing at this level for too much longer. I think he'll definitely get his chance at Castellón next season. His impact at Real Murcia has been incredible, and seeing this kind of play kind of proves it for me. But I think they'll be happy to go in at half-time 1-0. I think they'll be less happy with the second half, if I'm being perfectly honest, because again, I think they had a chance to really limit Nastic and really keep them quiet, especially when they reinforced from the bench, didn't they?
Yeah, it's interesting. They did keep them quiet until really the last 20 minutes. I can only really think of one chance that that Nasic in the first half was really good play by Antonin, actually, to create a chance himself, but then couldn't find the target. Ultimately, then after the break, he did finally bring Fernandez on San Pedro. Took Roberto Torres off. It was a really hot day, wasn't it, in Tarragona? And to be fair, Roberto Torres, no spring chicken nowadays. He didn't really have much impact on the game. And so I suppose it was an obvious change to bring Pablo Fernandez on. But, you know, even with their two best attacking players to me, and also Pictanaro, their third best attacking player on the pitch, they still didn't really create much at all, did they? And for me, the first real chance that they had of scoring a goal came from a mistake by Gazzaniga. He took a heavy touch, and Nastic's player bore down on him, but he managed to scramble it away in due course before there was a chance for an equaliser there. But yeah, it wasn't really that impressive, as you say, from that point of view, from Real Murcia really being in the driving seat for 70 minutes. It then the balance shifted, didn't it? And I'm not really sure how that happened. I think it started with that that chance for Fernando, the header he put on target, didn't he? And it was well saved by Gazzaniga. And then, of course, they got the equaliser.
Yeah, and take nothing away from that equaliser as well. It is a really, good goal to score. But, Nasic were very limited with everything they did in this game. And I thought it was actually quite a good number from Real Murcia to do. But we've seen this all season. This is what they do. This is why, they've got the best away record in Grupo Dos, is that they don't allow the home team to really implement their game plan and just keep on top of them and be, defensively solid. So I think it was very much in the game plan from Fernandez from start to finish that he'll be quite probably dismayed that he's gone in with, conceded that goal. But he's probably now thinking, Liam, we're going to go back to, the Nueva Condomina. All we have to do is just limit them again. We just have to wait them out now. Real Murcia could go through with this 1-1 draw, still perfectly fine. But there's a good to fair chance, Liam, that they'll probably actually go for the goal once again, but then go even more defensively solid at home with potentially 25 to 29,000 people behind them.
Yeah, that's the issue, isn't it? Will the fans be happy with them playing for a 0-0 draw? I suspect not. I mean, it's a risky strategy, isn't it? But they do have that advantage. I felt that to win this tie, Nasic Tarragona really had to win the first game on their own patch. It'd be interesting as well what San Pedro does in the second leg. Will he start both Fernandez and Antonin? I kind of feel like he has to. And the other interesting call he's got to make is with Puyol, because he had an interesting afternoon. For me, I think he was slightly at fault for the Real Murcia goal. It's not really his fault in a way. He tries to make an acrobatic clearance, which perhaps he shouldn't have done. And that he's then out of position. And that sets up a situation where essentially Pedro Benito is free, and Flaco, as you said, brilliant back heel to find Pedro Benito, who finished nicely. But that Pedro Benito was basically Puyol's man, wasn't he? He left him to try and make the clearance, and then he couldn't get back to stop him scoring the goal. But then the second half, he made an amazing challenge, interestingly again, on Benito. He's surging towards goal, Pedro Benito, and Puyol is on the edge of his own box, and he just made an unbelievable challenge, which if he gets it wrong, he's off. If he doesn't make the challenge, I think Benito scores, and 2-0 probably is tie over for me. So will he stick with him in a potential cauldron of an atmosphere in the Nueva Condomina, or will he perhaps bring somebody in more experienced? He's given him that chance first of all, and I think he has been renowned for doing that many years ago. That was now San Pedro, for giving youth a chance. But does he stick with his bold selection in the first leg and when he goes to Murcia? We shall see.
Yeah, you can often get those unquantifiable benefits from playing somebody who is an unknown quantity, don't you? And I think maybe that's where San Pedro is definitely thinking. And I suppose in two ways, it's worked either which way. So I would like to think he's probably going to carry on in Murcia at the weekend as well. I suppose just before we hop into the next game, are we confident that maybe that Real Murcia will be jumping into the playoff finals, Liam, or do you think there's maybe another surprise up Nastic's sleeve? They've got to throw the kitchen sink at it to survive, haven't they?
Yeah, we've documented before their poor away record, but isn't it just one of those occasions where you feel like everything is in Real Murcia's favour here? They're much better away from home than they are at home, as we've said, but they are now going home just needing a draw against a side that's not good on the road. And that would make them firm favourites, of course, to go through in this tie. But wouldn't it just be typical of Primera Federacion if Gimnàstic de Tarragona found a 5th win of the season in the most unlikely circumstances? And certainly if they can get an early goal, then I think the nerves will begin to show amongst the fans as well as amongst the Real Murcia players. Because let's face it, they've been out of the Segunda División for, I think, 10 years now, and they are clearly a side that should be at that level. And this is, as close as they've got to it recently. So there is pressure on them, I think. And I think if Nastic can go there and be confident and look to take the game to them, they've got a chance. But you'd have to make Real Murcia favourites at this stage, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. Maybe they can use the pain of last season's playoff agony to inspire them to an unlikely win here. But we'll keep an eye on that one. Speaking of surprise and unlikely wins, Liam, going into our second game, I think we probably looked at this one beforehand, looking at the form of Antequera in the second half of the season, and looking at the form of Ponfe, who only missed out on promotion by 1 goal on the head-to-head. You'd probably think this game at El Maule this weekend was a bit of a foregone conclusion, but we have been proved wrong. Antequera, the evergreen Antequera, who, let's remind ourselves, this is a team that's younger than me, and I'm only 34 years old. So let's just put that into context. A great turnout for them at El Maule. The fact that they didn't have any fans behind the goal, as you said before, is always a bit strange, but decent support, decent travelling support as well for a game that's over, well over 1,000 miles between Ponferrada and Antequera. It was quite
500 each way. It was a long way.
It was quite the game, though, to be fair, wasn't it, Liam? Like you say, it wasn't what we expected.
It wasn't. I think it's fair to say it wasn't a classic overall. It was cagey. It was a hot evening, as was the case in most of the playoff games. Not always a hot evening, but hot. Less hot in Andorra the next day, I suppose. But yeah, these two games, both in Tarragona and Antequera, clearly it was a very warm temperatures to be playing football. They're used to it, I know, but it's still difficult. And I thought the pitch looked nice, but as you watch the ball, it didn't run very true in it. It was quite bumpy. And yeah, the combination of that, teams not wanting to risk too much and not a great surface meant that there wasn't an awful lot going on in the first half, if I'm honest. Biabiani produced one of the few moments of quality, broke down the right, beautiful ball in from the right. Luis Miguel Gutierrez really should have put it away, but he's not really brilliant in the air. He's more about free kicks and kicking opponents as well, judging by his yellow card count. So yeah, it was a good chance missed. And then at the other end, I think Sevilla had a half chance for Ponferradina from a set piece. I think it was taken from the right, and he got free at the far post, headed it, but didn't manage to get it past the Antequera keeper, and that was pretty much it, really. So sort of two chances in total between the two sides in the first half. So not a lot going on, but the second half was a bit better, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and I think, like you say, I think again, similar to maybe how we talk about Real Murcia before, Antequera probably knew that Ponfe wanted to come here to play, that free-flowing attacking football, which they're capable of, especially with the likes of, Bustos and Yere in their side. They just limited them to very, very few opportunities and limited them to playing very cagey football, like you said. And it's probably demonstrated perfectly that the breakthrough in this game, the 1 goal that we did get, was a brilliant in-swinging cross from the left-hand side from deep as well. This isn't, hugging the touchline stuff. This is very much left-back territory, isn't it? And it's just lofted into the box, and it finds Alex Rubio absolutely perfectly. And that's all Antequera needed, really, to give them the chance to win this game. They just, smash and grab, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? You said you thought that they limited Ponferradina's sort of attacking intent. I just think the trouble is sometimes, you finish second, you probably are going away from home thinking, I just need to make sure I don't lose this. And I just wonder whether Ponfe's outlook was a little bit kind of like, we'll come for the draw here. And I didn't feel that they played that well. And also, yeah, it was a great cross. I think it took a slight deflection, but, didn't really alter the trajectory of the ball very much. And a brilliant header from Alex Rubio, as you said, and Prieto had no chance with that. But that was in the 51st minute, I think, Nick. And they had more than 40 minutes to get back into this game. But a couple of half chances, nothing else. They just didn't really get going, I didn't think. I thought they were poor overall, Ponferradina. And you know, potentially, I
Steve,
think they could pay for that, don't you think? I mean, they of course just need to win the return leg 1-0 and they will go through. But I just felt psychologically, they just didn't really show up for me.
well, that was going to be my next question. Do you think the mental effect that, you know, chasing down Cultural Leonesa to the final day of the season, obviously all those impressive victories that they had, including one over Cultu in the final minutes, and then just to lose out by that fine margin? You know, we were just talking about that in the Segunda RF playoffs, weren't we? Where all the teams that seemingly are finishing towards the bottom end of the playoff sections seemingly are with momentum, and it's not unusual to see. But I think Ponfe, yeah, I think you're right. I think I think they'll struggle to get over that, and I think they need to maybe look at themselves this week and try and reset their minds, because otherwise, like Nasty to Tarragona, they're going to miss another brilliant opportunity to get promoted this season after the heartbreak of last.
Very much so. There was a sense of here we go again, wasn't it? Of course, they were in the playoffs last year. I mean, I think what they have to channel in that all of that, Nick, is that they pushed them really hard. I mean, it's not like they threw it away. They did chase Culto right to the finishing line, didn't they? Now, yeah, of course, it's disappointing that they didn't quite make it. And of course, they could dwell on the fact it was just literally one goal, as you say. The Culto won the goal average by virtue of a 2-0 win at home, and Ponfe could only beat them 2-1 in El Toralín. But yeah, I mean, you forget about it. You need to get over it now, don't you? They're clearly better than Antequera. Going back home will be handy. Maybe the long journey, and we did talk about that, didn't we, in the preview shows. You know, could it be that, you know, traveling that distance put them off a little bit? Antequera got to do that next weekend, so maybe that'll have an effect. El Toralín will be a sellout, I'm sure. Fans will be really up for it. Antequera will probably not take many supporters up there, so you know, it's going to be very much a partisan crowd, and you'd still fancy them, but that was not the performance I was expecting from Ponferradina this weekend, and they need to, as you say, move on if there is any mental hang-ups left from that so near but yet so far situation with Culto. They need to forget about it now and concentrate on the fact that they finished second in the league and so should be favourites to go up.
Yeah, and like you say, they maybe need to get themselves out of that slight funk potentially and get a result at El Toralín, because obviously this isn't decided after this game. They've then got another 2 games to go into, and we look at the other draws. I can't quite remember whether it would be Real Murcia or Nastic, or whether it be Andorra Ibiza that would come up against. But you know, again, 4 sides there who, on their day or across 2 legs especially, are probably a bit more difficult to play against than Antequera as well. So there's probably a real mindset shift that needs to happen at Ponfe, and Javier Rey needs to maybe get his players around and regroup quite quickly this week in order to overturn that deficit at home. But we shall watch that with interest. Another manager, Liam, who has to get his team wrapped round and find a bit of form at home and to galvanise them in front of the home fans is going to be Paco Gémez, because this weekend he took his side to Andorra de Laval and took a bit of a hiding, didn't they, in the grand scheme of things. This was, I think we predicted that this wouldn't be a cagey game. I don't think we got that, but I don't think we expected Ibiza to be this meek. Would that be the word to use?
Totally agree. I thought they were really poor and so surprising. I mean, they started so well for sort of 10, 15 minutes. I thought it was exactly what I was expecting for the Javi Jimenez. Had a shot well saved. They looked really up for it. But then as soon as the home side went in front, they just controlled the game for me. And we did mention Alex Gallard being a key player. I thought he might be back. He's been out for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not sure he'll now make the playoffs at all at this rate. He surely, if he'd been anywhere near fit, he would have played in this first leg. He was badly missed. I just thought overall they were just really, really poor. And the goal, the first Andorra goal, is their worst nightmare, isn't it? You've got Bebe chasing back into his own area to try and defend against the fullback pal Casa de Sus. He can't do that. It's not Bebe's real natural game, is it, to be back inside his own area trying to make a tackle. A good cross from Cáceres was a lovely finish from Josep Cerda, which I thought was interesting because I'm not really focused on him this season, but he's got 7 goals for them now. He didn't feature in our ones to watch, I suppose, because we were always going to include 2 strikers and 1 other, and he didn't make the cut. But yeah, they were really good. after they went ahead, Andorra. Well, I can't decide if they were really good or Ibiza were just really poor, but they completely controlled it.
Yeah.
And we just mentioned the ones to watch, and one of our ones to watch did appear on the scene, didn't he, before halftime?
Yeah, they did. That is La Ruda de Leon, and again, I think for him, just a textbook goal, wasn't it? A textbook finish, and again, it was good build-up play for Andorra, who then just pounced on the poor clearance, and de Leon just does what de Leon does and just finishes into the bottom corner. So I think, I think everything about this game for me, Liam, just pointed towards Andorra being comfortable. I was a bit concerned for them being in this new stadium, which I won't even try to remember the name of. It's basically the Andorran training ground, isn't it now? Not the team, the nation, I assume. But actually, it looked quite good. They had, a big crowd in there. I think it was just shy of 4,000 fans they had in, but it felt a bit more of a cauldron atmosphere. In fact, dare I say, I could hear an atmosphere which we've never had at the Estadio Nacional before, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it turned out to be a bit of an easy afternoon, and I suppose now they've just got to go back to the Estadio Can Mercedes in Ibiza and hope same again, please, Paco. Give us your word.
Yeah. please come up short again. I mean, he used all 5 subs in the second half, Paco Jimenez, didn't he? And including bring on Agus Medina for the last 4 minutes at right back. Swapped his right back for a right back with 4 minutes to go. I was just like, is he just trying to use all 5 subs there? I mean, that was a weird one. And I've seen Mo Dow that admittedly at the next level up in Segunda play as a centre forward. I know he wants to play there. I know he went to El Dense last season because they said he could play as a centre forward. He's not a centre forward, Nick. He's not good enough. He didn't even look good enough to be a centre forward at this level. He's a wide player for me. He's definitely not a centre forward. He was very poor in this game. Didn't really look anything like. And I mean, they left a striker on the bench to play him as a centre forward, and it didn't work. And then this just kind of sums up, unfortunately, what Ibiza have been like this season, haven't they? I know Fielder probably rocked up with a massive hangover for the previous week's game. Perhaps spent the whole night in Patch or whatever on the islands. But, they beat them 5-0 and they looked decent, and they could have had a few more as well. And this week they were woeful. And it's that inconsistency that's the problem, isn't it? So, like you say, Paco's got a big job to do this week to get them up for it again. A 2-0 win is well within their capabilities, but do you think they can do it, or was this so poor that realistically there's no way back for them from it?
They are, as you say, inconsistency is their credence this second half season. They're a very Jekyll and Hyde team, aren't they? So I would not like to put a shiny £5 note on Andorra going here and winning comfortably at the Estadio Can Mercedes, because they can produce something. And a Paco Jimenez side with his back against the wall, let's not forget, because it's not just the 2-0 deficit he's got to come up against. He's also got that that swing in his favour. Actually, no, that is in his favour, isn't he? So if he can get it back to 2-2, they go through on the head-to-head, don't they? So again, he's got these little aces up his sleeves, which is so Paco Jimenez that I think don't rule him out just yet. I think he definitely would have given his players a hairdry treatment on the flight back to the Balearics on Sunday afternoon. I wouldn't want to pin my hat on this one, to be fair, because as much as everything is pointing towards a comfortable Andorra victory, like I said before, these two teams just go gung-ho, and Andorra could easily produce a similar result to what Ibiza did in Andorra at the weekend. Yeah,
I don't think that Andorra will be as abject as Ibiza were in that first game. It's interesting that they're trying hard, aren't they? I mean, you're right. There were nearly 4,000 there. There was a little bit of atmosphere, but it's a playoff semi-final, for goodness sake. You've still got a third of the stadium, with empty seats. It's really disappointing. I'm just not sure Project PK is ever going to really kick off in Andorra, unfortunately.
They turn up. PK was there.
Yeah. He must have been a bit disappointed, I suspect, by the turnout. But yeah, it was a bit better than the National Stadium, not a lot. And he's even, I think they're even, if they make them way to Ibiza this weekend, they're getting him for free, apparently. I think the club is subsidising anybody who wants to go to the game. You can basically, will pay for your ticket. So they're trying, but it just feels like a really hard slog to try and get the people of Andorra behind them. And of course, they do have their own national league, don't they, Nick? So there'll be an element of that, although it's not massively well supported, there'll be fans in Andorra who don't really relate to Project PK at all. So yeah, but I think the players certainly are up for it, and yeah, they'd have to be favourites. But as you say, you could just as easily see Paco Gémez turning up, with his team absolutely up for it and winning 5-0. They can do that. They have the capabilities. But yeah, I think you've got to say overall Andorra are favourites now.
Yes, they will be. Yes, they will be. So we'll keep an eye on that game in Ibiza this weekend. And now on to our final semi-final game. This is number 4. It was between, unfortunately, Filial was involved, but one where there were not. I don't really know how to describe it. I'm agnostic towards Real Sociedad Bay. They kind of just exist around me, and I go, okay. But in this game, I hated them. Liam, because I so wanted Merida to do well in this game. And I thought Merida played actually very, very well in this match. But to go into the second leg at Zubieta 1-0 down isn't a good starting point, is it? This game was weird for me. I don't think La Real Bay were particularly special. And I actually think Merida had a good shout for, not only scoring a couple of goals, which is unusual for them to do at the Estadio Romano this season. They've usually been quite free-flowing goal-scoring form. But there was a couple of penalty shouts as well. It was a awkward watch. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, I found it really strange overall. I mean, yeah, it was a decent turnout. I think it was about 6,500 there, but they have had that for league games. Now, I know, obviously, presumably Socios had to pay for this game, but I was expecting a bit more. It's the biggest game in 17 years in this city. And so I was thinking they would be getting nearer 10,000 for this, really. And I don't know if it was because maybe some of them don't come regularly. I didn't feel, there were moments when there was a good atmosphere, but I felt quite a lot of the time it was quite quiet. I don't know if that was your impression. I don't know if that's partly FEF TV's fault, but it didn't feel like a really bouncing atmosphere, which I couldn't quite work out. And it's weird because, yeah, I thought overall they didn't play brilliantly, but yet they did, as you say, have a couple of really good chances. I mean, we highlighted, didn't we, Donzel and Beltran and Eslava as 3 key players all have joined the club this season. And Donzel and Beltran did almost nothing, really. Beltran missed a good chance for half-time, but such a limited impact on proceedings. And they both got subbed off, didn't they? Eslava was better, but then he missed a couple of great chances. And as you say, we had these 2 penalty appeals. What did you make of those?
To be honest, looking at the first one, I can see why it wasn't given. Looking at the second one, I'm not as convinced that it shouldn't have been a pen. I think, if we had VAR light, and again, I'm using air quotes on a podcast, I think one of those 2 penalties could have been given, and I'd lean more towards the second one. But you can't really rely on them. And we've got to remember here, as much as they are a pain in the arse, you've got to beat these, filial size. And I know there's an excellent quote you're going to tell me in a minute about that terminology, Liam. But if Merida are a big club, and they've got to look at this opportunity to say, I'm not being pushed out by somebody's backup side. Do you know what I mean? You're right. That awkwardness felt like there wasn't enough emotion in this game for me to get Merida across the line, which is what they really needed, because we know that the cantera for Real Sociedad is a great cantera, and we know that they've got good players, and we know that they've been capable of getting out this league before. So why wouldn't you throw everything you've got at it? Were they scared? Were they nervous? I can't put my finger on it.
I do wonder if that was it. I do wonder whether it's such a big occasion that they kind of almost froze in the headlights, really. And yet, as we say, they had 2 penalty appeals, which some referees would have given. I thought it was hilarious. I love it when managers do this. He was asked what he thought of the contentious decisions in his press conference, Guillaume, and he went, not going to talk about it, and then proceeded to talk about it. It's like, let's just say we've got history as referee, he said, and I would prefer not to have had him. I'm like, well, you just have said something about him, haven't you? But yeah, I can see why he's unhappy. But yeah, as I say, we've got 2 penalties that some refs might have given, at least one of them, as you say, and 2 fantastic chances for Eslava and 1 decent chance for Beltran. And yet we're saying that they didn't play very well, or they just didn't seem to quite perform on the night. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, the goal that Real Sociedad scored, a beautiful ball in from the left. But again, for me, it's a little bit of controversy about the goal scorer here, Marieth Corena, because there are rules out there, Nick, as to how many games players who've played for the first team can play for a filial. But the thing is that there's also something called an equipo dependiente. And I've tried to do some research on this over the last few days because this has come up before. I remember it coming up with Almeria B against Jaén last year. And essentially, these B teams, they're not filiales, from what I can work out. They're what's called equipo dependientes, and the rules don't apply to them. So there's actually very few filiales out there. So we talk about these filiales, but when it comes to the rules in terms of appearances, none of them are actually filiales. The only filiales out there, Nick, are teams like Baskonia, who are unofficially Athletic Club C, and Subiza, who are unofficially Osasuna C. Teams like that have an allegiance, have a kind of a connection with these father clubs, so to speak, or mother clubs, whatever we call them, but don't actually play under the name of a B or C team. In which case, let's just get rid of the distinction. What a waste of time that is. Do you know what I mean? And the point remains, why have we got players who've played regularly for the first team playing in the biggest games of the season against, it's an unfair advantage, but we'll never stop banging on about that, will we?
No, you won't. And the integrity of it also gets called in question because there must have been a player that this chap's come in for, because who's probably performed admirably all season, or bit part, so to speak, when this player's been unavailable. It's got to go one or the other way for me. It kind of happened with Chupe at Malaga this season, not to bring this into a segundo level, but once he was elevated out of Atletico Malagueño, he only rarely dropped back in, but still that isn't what should be done. It should be an elevation into the first team to compete with the first team, and that's definitely what should be happening here. So I can see why Guilo is a bit miffed by this, because again, I suppose he's looking from a position of not from strength anymore. He's looking at his team going to Zubieta, which again is another issue I take with this, Liam. Anoeta clearly isn't being used right now. Why aren't we playing this in the big stadium, and why aren't we letting Merida fans go en masse? Why are we doing this at a training ground? It's a playoff semi-final.
And more to the point, Nick, why are we charging €30? So the club, the Merida have asked for the tickets to go on sale for €20. Real Sociedad have not agreed to that, and they're now charging €30. I mean, it's just obscene. I mean, I just sometimes feel with these clubs, you know what? Do you not realize that everyone hates you? And ultimately, not the clubs themselves, but the B teams especially. You just seem to really not care. You just seem to be determined to piss people off as much as you can with everything that you do. It's like, but they don't care, because ultimately they will stay in the pyramid. I suspect, people have been banging on about getting rid of the filiales or the equipos dependientes, whatever the hell you want to call them, for years, and nothing changes. So they probably think they don't have to bother. They can do it. Like, what difference does that extra €10 make to Real Sociedad? I mean, seriously, it's utterly ridiculous.
Nothing in the grand scheme of things. And if they wanted to make even more money about it, open up the bigger stadium to let more people in. It's to stop the fan experience. It's to stop something mad like 7 buses of Merida fans turn up to cheer them across the line potentially. It's psychological. It's being made as a decision to prevent Merida getting as much support as they can and as much of an edge. It's all about these marginal gains, but you're absolutely right. We can complain all day long about Real Sociedad B or Sevilla Atletico or Betis Deportivo in this league, but no one ever takes shots at the so-called mothership, as you've alluded to. Why are they that bothered? And why aren't they using these teams the way they should be done? I think we just need to get rid of fucking all of them, and we'd all be happy. So I really hope Merida in this game, Liam, can turn this around, because, for your other show's benefit as well, we'd love to have a Spanish Segunda with no B teams in them at all. I think this year's been absolutely brilliant without any of them side of it. So if it means us keeping them here so we can absolutely, shit all over them all week, for want of a better saying, then so be it. I'm happy to do that service.
I think that's a very, very noble gesture, Nick, and it's one that I share as well. I have nothing to say favourable about them, and every time I try, as you say, Real Sociedad is one of the teams that I'm slightly less bothered by. They don't give me such bad vibes as some of the other ones do, and then you see things like this happening, and you think they're just as bad as all the rest.
I am bothered about them now. I'm gonna say I'm not agnostic anymore. I'm pure hatred against Real Sociedad B now, because
realistically, can they turn it around? I'm not sure they can. I think they are a decent side, Real Sociedad B, and who knows who they'll bring in this weekend. I think it's a massive arse. Now, let's not forget the Real Sociedad B finished higher, so Merida have to win by 2 clear goals. And I can't see that happening, I'm afraid. So I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to rely on whoever RFEF will play in the final to stop them from getting to Segunda and ensuring they stay with us for another season. And talking of the end of this season, a lot of teams are already looking towards the next season, aren't they? Despite the fact this one hasn't finished. Most of the changes, though, so far of note have been in the dugout, haven't they? A number of new coaches and also a number of coaches that have left, but we haven't yet got replacements for them. Do you want to mention a few of them?
Yeah, I was going to say, this isn't really the managerial merry-go-round. This is the managerial catapult, because this is a lot of managers just having a bit of an exodus at the moment, and I don't think many of them, or too many, they're going to land jobs back at this level, really. So I suppose to start with Real Madrid Castilla, Real Madrid legend Raúl has decided to leave. As we've mentioned before, maybe he's a bit sulking ever so slightly that Xabi Alonso has been parachuted in for a job that he's been waiting for all these years. So he's decided he's going to go look elsewhere. I did think he was going to get the Schalke job, but that's just gone to the Plymouth Argyle manager. So again, maybe some time off is pending for Raúl. Another change, well, all these changes seem to be at the filiales, so I won't dwell on them too much. Arzu has left Betis Deportivo. Heavy rumours that there is a manager being lined up for there, one that we respect a lot, but maybe we'll come to not like so much next season if this does happen. Liam, that's I don't know if we want to mention it too much because I don't want to jinx anything. Do you?
Well, let's just say he's a coach that's currently involved in the Primera Federacion Play Offs, and he does have a strong link with Real Betis. But the fact that this link has been made, this kind of leak has happened in the week in which his side is competing in the Primera Federacion Play Offs, I think is incredibly distasteful. And I know that these things sometimes creep out, but I just think how destabilising for his current side. There should have been a way to keep a lid on that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a brilliant young manager as well. So I can see from his perspective why, long term. But again, I suppose everything will depend on whether Andy Guerra can pull off the impossible. And I've probably given it away there just ever so slightly after all that cloak and dagger talk. So apologies for that one. Miguel Alvarez has stepped down at Villarreal B. He is he's been there a very, very long time. I think we were talking about this in Yekla, weren't we? That he's been a bit of a stalwart for the Bay team for a very long time. But he's been replaced by David Alveda, a former Valencia man, and for Spain. He did have a couple of years with Villarreal towards the back end of his career, but it seems to have been a bit of a concertina up now because all the managers underneath the Villarreal first team have sort of like just shifted to the left ever so slightly. I think they've even brought Pepe Reina in to replace somebody who's left the under-19s to move up to the juvenile team. So, many changes there as well. The interesting one for me, really, is these sides that are coming up from Segunda Ref. You'd be thinking, Liam, that, just got promoted. I'm really excited. I'm going to be in the Primera Ref next season, a new challenge. Pontevedra manager, it was Iago Iglesias. He decided he doesn't fancy it, does he?
Yeah, I think it's a strange one. I mean, again, we don't know a huge amount about Pontevedra as a club at this stage. We'll certainly learn a lot more about it over the next few months, won't we? But the sense I get from responses to the new coach, who's Ruben Dominguez, the announcement's appointment, that is that that he's going to struggle because the club isn't really going to back whoever is in charge, and maybe they're going to try and stay up on the cheap, and that might be why Iago Iglesias has left. I thought he might go to Racing Club de Ferrol because, of course, Pontevedra and Ferrol are two cities quite near each other in Galicia. I don't think that's going to happen now because he left a couple of weeks ago and he hasn't gone there. And we think somebody else might be getting that job, don't we? And might have already got that job by the time you're listening to this. But yeah, we don't usually see coaches getting a new club for the following season when they've got their current club promoted. And really, one of them is this Sabadell coach, David Moya. I think only came into Sabadell in January, and he's got them promoted. He got Zamora promoted last year and left, and now there's talk that he might not stay at Sabadell. So it is strange that you could imagine potentially, two sides there who've just got promoted, and both of the coaches have moved on. But there'll be reasons behind that, and that we have lost a coach in the Galician area, haven't we, as well in the last few days? But we think he might be staying in Primera Ref at a team not so far away.
Yes, I suppose when we speak about manager merry-go-rounds, we probably weren't necessarily thinking about this little trifecta of Galician teams which are going to be doing that. So, like you said, we've got Iago Iglesias leaving Pontevedra. Ruben Dominguez, who is a former Orense manager, has decided to be parachuted into there. And then after that, it is Pablo Lopez, who is the current Orense manager, who didn't take over Ruben Dominguez. He's now going to go to Racing Club de Ferrol, apparently. He has been confirmed that he's left Orense this morning. There's been no announcement just yet, but we're pretty sure it's going to happen tonight or tomorrow morning. He's going back to Malata. Malata? I struggled with that one before, didn't I? But yeah, it's quite an exciting move for him, though, isn't it? It's back to a club he knows. He's worked there as assistant before. And Racing Club de Ferrol will be one of the favourites for promotion back to Segunda next season, won't they? So it's a bit of a no-brainer for him, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's a club with more, not a club of extravagant means in terms of Segunda football, in Primera RF terms. I suspect they'll have a much bigger budget, and they're clearly a bigger fish than Orense, the team. They are the team, of course, Orense, one of the two Orense teams that's less favoured by the locals. So Ude Orense, which is the team that's essentially the fan-owned team that's just come up to Segunda Ref. They're extremely well supported. The other Orense is significantly less supported. And so, yeah, you're right. It's a no-brainer for Pablo Lopez. Quite a lot going on in Galicia over the last few days, hasn't there been? The other story that concerns me more, I have to say, Nick, is the shout that the Arribas family are about to become the new owners of Arenteiro. Nobody has a good thing to say about the Arribas family in terms of what the job they did at Rayo Majadahonda, sold that club and appear to be moving on to Alentejo, which is a club that we've always had a bit of a soft spot for because they're a minnow again, competing against the odds and doing very well with that in Primera F. It doesn't look good for them, does it? And this is partly about moving to a PLC, and therefore, you can sell the club to a private investor, but it doesn't. I'm not happy about that, and I do hope it doesn't all end in tears for the fans and for a club that's really done brilliantly to establish itself for the last couple of seasons at this level.
Yeah, I don't see the thought process behind this one from the Arribas family perspective. I'm not saying that Rayo Majadahonda is a massive club, but in terms of where they are, where they're based, being in close proximity to Madrid, etc. I can maybe see why. Arenteiro just seems very out there for someone to come and try and implement this kind of model. Again, I maybe I'm being densely, but I can't see how the two pieces are going to fit together, and I really do hope that it doesn't go sour. But I think we're maybe expecting it will.
Yeah, I really hope that, as you say, that it doesn't, but the signs don't look good. Talking of signs that don't look good, apologies for those who think we might be trying to turn, or I might be trying to turn this into a Yaclano Deportivo podcast. Clearly, they have gone. They aren't coming back to Primera Federacion in 25-26. Hopefully, they'll be back after that. But one last wear of my shirt before we wave them goodbye. And the reason why I'm wearing it, why we're waving them goodbye in terms of what's happened today, in terms of a particularly significant development there.
Well, it was a sad occasion today because they held a press conference just after dinner time where Yaclano Deportivo and Adrian Hernandez have decided to mutually part ways as well, may I add, after 4 seasons together. He's a manager that is very well thought of in Yecla. Those 2 promotions, he's taken them from Tercera Federacion to all the way to Primera RF and was only 8 minutes away from keeping them there. And I think Polly thinks that my cycle is over. It's been such a fantastic period of success for the club that now it's time to have maybe a bit of a reset. But there was tears in this press conference. There was a lot of applause from both fans, members of the team at the club, members of the press. It was a nice occasion, to be fair, to celebrate him. But he's on to pastures new for the next season. Liam and Yaclano are in the hunt for a new gaffer.
They are indeed, and you would expect quite a few players to leave as well. I suspect that might have happened regardless of the coach's movements. Who knows? He might get a job just down the road, mightn't he, and take quite a few of those with him. They've, as you said, kept fighting to the bitter end and got within 8 minutes of staying up. And it's always sad in these situations. You think, 8 minutes away from this not all falling apart, so to speak, in terms of the playing staff and the coaching staff. But it is what it is. And they will need to reset as a club, the Atlanta Deportiva, and we wish them the very best in that process. We will, of course, be keeping a very close eye on them, even though we won't be talking about them much until probably the end of next season. Hopefully, we'll be talking about the end of next season as a side that's coming to rejoin us.
Fingers crossed, and very much on our radar. Always on El Pozo. They may not be Primera Ref, but they will always be in our hearts, Liam. One last piece of news to maybe end on, which we don't know is news. It's maybe rumour, it's maybe conjecture. We don't know, but we've got maybe a bit of tongue-in-cheek for you. We put out some news yesterday that there are some very strong vibes on the Costa del Sol that a Juventud de Torremolinos player may be leaving within the week. There is a contract that this is very much ending now. However, a club has moved quickly to try and secure him early. That club is Ibiza, who we've already mentioned are involved in the playoffs, but they are in quite heavily for Fran Castillo, who scored 17 goals for the Torremolinos side this season. I've heard fans of Torremolinos tell me he's a very good footballer. I've heard Malaga fans tell me I'd love him to come to La Rosaleda this season. It sounds like he's heading to the Balearics, Liam, and we even got a cheeky like from the man himself this morning. So we're either going to look like we're in the know, or we're going to get turned into a meme by the media team at Juventud de Torremolinos when he renews his contract. What do you think?
There's usually no smoke with that fire, is there? I feel for Juventud de Torremolinos, who've just secured a second consecutive promotion, haven't they? And so are joining this RF. But this is the nature of the beast, isn't it? We've talked about this before with the likes of Adrian Fuentes at Tarazona, and certainly now that Orense have lost their coach, you'd expect Carbonell scored all the goals for them to leave. The kind of offer that Ibiza can make Torremolinos and make the player realistically, and in fact they won't even need to. I suspect he's out contract, so they won't have to pay the club anything, and they can, dangle a very succulent carrot in front of the player. And it is, of course, progression. I hope it's not true, if I'm honest, but it wouldn't surprise me if it were.
Yeah, I'd like to see him with Torremolinos next season, but again, depending where Ibiza end up as well, could persuade him or Ibiza as well. I suppose from their perspective, they're getting a good player for their level anyway, and there's strong rumours on the Costa del Sol as well that Torremolinos are looking to bring in Dione, who I think he is still the leading scorer at this level. I don't think Rodrigo Rios has caught him up just yet. I know he's very, very close, but it sounds like they might be bringing him in from Malaga now that he's been released by Sergio Pellicer and co. So lots moving around. I think now that all these managers are starting to settle into space, we're going to get a few more transfer rumours popping up here and then, which will be very, very interesting to see. Just to end on Liam, obviously, I noticed on my Patreon subscription to the Spanish Segunda before we start recording that there is a playoff preview, and there's plenty of exciting stuff happening in the Segunda playoffs this coming weekend. Anything you want to signpost for us?
Yeah, two massive games. One clouded in controversy because Luis Javier Suarez has been called up by Colombia, which is a massive loss for Almeria in their game against Real Oviedo, but brilliant news for Real Oviedo fans. And then Mirandés, the fairy tale story of this season, play Racing de Santander in the other one. So two absolutely cracking games. But of course, there'll also be finals after that. So there will be football to watch for the next few weeks in Segunda. And there will also be in Primera RF. We've got another 3 weeks of the Primera RF season to go, haven't we? So you've got that to look forward to as well. A couple of massive Segunda semi-finals, but equally 4 brilliant quarterfinals, which FEF TV will, of course, be doing great justice to as always.
Yes, don't cancel your subscriptions just yet. I suppose we did get a result as well between Ceuta and Cultural Leonesa, which is probably worth mentioning. Forgive me, I have not even clocked this because this game means very little to me. Was it Ceuta who came out on top? They're the champions of champions, or I got that the wrong way around?
Yeah, you're right. They won 7-6 on aggregate. So at least those who did bother to turn up for either or both game got a decent game. Both games clashed with a major European final. As we said last week, what a strange decision that is. If it's a game that you really care about, perhaps you schedule it a little bit better. But yeah, Ceuta came back, I think, for 3-1 down in that second game on the enclave and won it 4-3 and therefore won 7-6 overall. So they are the champions of champions for what it's worth. But yeah, Two great games, but not an awful lot of attention paid to it by either of us.
Yes, one for the purist. We thought we were purists, Liam, but Christ, that must be one for the absolute, fine wine drinkers of Primera Ref watching. To be fair, but yes, we'll keep an eye out on them in the Spanish Segunda next season as well. I know you'll definitely be keeping your eye on both of those clubs from that perspective. But for now, I'll say thank you very much to everyone listening at home. I'll say gracias to you, Liam, for joining me once again. We'll be back next week where we will know who will be in those playoff finals after this weekend's football. So we look forward to that. But as always, keep up to date with anything happening Primera Ref. Follow us at El Pozo on Twitter or X. And yeah, you can get across everything from there. So I'll say thank you to you at home. We'll see you again very, very soon.
Hasta la próxima.